Do you know that 98% of people watch the videos without subscribing? If you like our videos, we would be excited to see you guys subscribed. It has a huge impact on the channel promotion. And also, you will stay updated with newest content. Happy to have you here.
The gang setups, I feel like there should be some from Aegis Aurora.
Well, Jake, we're heading into game. Any final thoughts before we get this best of 3 going?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see, Zergy getting to the late game here. I think a lot of pressure is on him, but the rest of the team, that does put a clock on Aegis Aurora. I before the 7 comes out, I would have said, the late game looks really solid for Aegis, but now 7, I feel Buff and George really have every stage of the game opportunity.
All right, thank you, Jake. We'll hear more from Jake at the end of the game, but now, Dan, as we look into it, here's the interesting thing to me that you don't always see. Comes out sometimes. We got a laning Abrams, not exiled to solo lane, and also the pressure on the Shiv in lane 4. The quick rotation from Aegis Aurora already trying to be as scrappy as they were last game.
Yeah, I love it. I think it makes a lot of sense to try to give that very early edge to try to snowball those first like 500 items. And I think that's, in large part why we see the harassment in these solo lanes work out this way. It's something that NA, I feel like, pioneered the most, for sure. And so I feel like we should give credit to them for that. But it's certainly something that has been working out.
I would say we have a non-violence lane in lane 3, but actually Wizaster, who's on the Ivy this time around, getting pummeled down a little bit by Obikim in the support v support battle. So just because it's 2 supports doesn't mean that there's not your share of pressure going on. As Wizaster is quite low right now, Dan, to take a look at it.
Yeah. And that is interesting. I would have expected Wizaster. I mean, we set it up so well that you should be playing Mo and Krill. I feel betrayed. I feel utterly betrayed. It's like when they change an actor from like a season that or rather from a show that you really enjoy from from one season to the next. It just feels doesn't feel good, man. There's
no betrayal on Buff and George, though. Everyone is playing exactly what we said they would play in drafts, so they're sticking to the script, if nothing else. Right now, though, just taking a gander at lane 2, and uh-oh, Vindicta grounded, charged, and dead. Listic, fine opportunity, gets parried, but parry will be worth nothing as Listic picks up 2, and Abrams getting ahead early, not the best omen for Aegis Aurora.
Yes, that's a very good point. Very, very challenging, and Demov is going to go down, so okay, well, it's going to be a trade in the end here on lane 4. And yeah, I was going to make the point that we got a bit more pressure coming in there, but I was going to make the point that I'm really curious to see how Saint will be on the Vindicta, because, Vindicta can get ahead pretty fast if obviously, you just rush level 3 on the snipe, on the ult. And that's, I feel like, something that could help to mitigate some of the tankiness that we see if you're able to get that Pristine Emblem online early and just like really have a lot of that oppressive gun damage. And because you can be more active and you can farm a bit, in those team fights, as opposed to 7, who's locked away for a certain period of time before finally arriving onto the scene like Magneto.
Yeah, well, not only that, but also for Vindicta too. Vindicta has like one of the more oppressive mid games, right? Vindicta hits 3K, and usually you'll see a lot of Vindictas go to roam almost as heavily as you would see a Paradox roam, right? So you definitely don't want to necessarily let a Vindicta get that snowball rolling, because, in the idea of who creates a snowball in Deadlock, Vindicta near the top of the list.
Yeah.
A little bit of rotations here, though. Lane 3 is back to normal. Lane 4 back to being a solo area, though Demov getting poked down quite a bit as I say that. Sanya doing a great job of maintaining pressure within lane 4.
Indeed, yeah. There's a lot of interesting interactions between the util here. Oh, hello, 40 HP ABL dying for the cause, but sadly the cause was lost. Okay, well, more action here as well on lane 3 with the last stand coming through. Oh my god, how VP? Sharik is alive.
Just got the hit from the minion and I think a little bit from the Kelvin. That was enough, but yeah, that was dangerous to say the least. Also, ABL dying huge when you talk about lane dynamics, right? Where if ABL had won that, swap Zergy and ABL swap. Telekinesis over and in, pressure onto the Kelvin. Kelvin just trying to line of sight. Hope for a little bit of hope to come in. Warden is in the middle of rotating, and as a result, Obikin gonna stave off the worst of it for now.
Also, pressure coming here on lane 2 as well, straight onto the tower. Quick parry and dodging the Demov's melee charge coming in as well. I mean, honestly, Mo is just so oppressive in these lanes. The stuff that Mo can do because of the heal and sandblast and everything else. And the spawn, and they're back. They're back into relative safety.
Well, right now, nothing will be safe long-term for Aegis Aurora just because Mikhail now at 3K is going to be doing the Paradox move. It's what you expect from Area Paradox. Wall directly on top of Yamato. ABL, lower HP, fires back. Listic goes down and able to stave things off. And for now, we'll see the next lane Mikhail goes to. I don't think Mikhail's going to stay in lane 2 for too long. If anything, if I'm Geist, I have a sixth sense wondering, all right, where's the Paradox? Because that, I think, may be the next likely target.
Yep, definitely a good point. And we'll get the lift here. Where is Mo going to be thrown? Well, back to safety. It's a defensive airdrop. And one dynamic I'm interested in seeing as well, by the way, is the stake that can be used to try to help secure additional combos, which is not a dynamic we had for Aegis Aurora in the previous match.
Right now, this is a whole lot of people committing into lane 3. Buff Enjoyers just trying to look for an earlier Guardian. Instead, the rotation coming on in. Saint in the air. 4.2k snipe on the menu. And Buff Enjoyers giving a decent amount of respect, backing out, and still punishing Razumi. So, decent rotation coming on in. Hoboken able to get on the Wizaster, and Buff Enjoyers dealing with the rotations quite well.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job for sure. We will get Listic coming across as well to try to get some kills here on lane 2. And oh my god, hello. That's one way to do it from Listic. And I mean, you talked about it very early on that, okay, hang on, we've got to be cautious here. Listic is, it might be getting a little out of hand, and it seems to be continuing so far.
Already, Aegis Aurora is a bit of a danger zone in terms of Buff Enjoyers building a pretty nice nest egg to kick things off. Here, fight near the bridge buff. Won't even be up for 3 minutes. Sanya looking for anything. Sanya did a great job last match of finding pickoffs, getting out without dying. But now the pressure is on Dimov in hot pursuit. Hoboken, though, picked off. As this goes down here, you see the rotation between lane 2 and 3 right now. It's still Dimov in hot pursuit, looking for the Wraith. I think Sanya's going to get away, but it was a journey.
Need that range extender for that ult. That was the shift there. Yeah, Sanya is barely surviving. Listic, just the front line here by the tower, is going to be able to take down Saint. So it looks like Aegis Aurora, you know, they are kind of, as you said, in what feels like somewhat of a danger zone here. Another fight breaking out in the middle area. Kelvin not going off for a moment. There's the combo, and here is that combo that we're so used to seeing with the Power Slash, with the Crimson Blaze coming out. And so far, so good from ABL. The pursuit coming in more forward here, diving into the tower. I honestly, this is so insane. Staying out there, Saint able to capitalize, getting 2 picks off of that. So that should be some extra money in the bank there for the Vindicta. And Aegis Aurora, not coming off too worst aware for that, but ultimately still Buff Enjoyers a bit ahead.
Well, I think Aegis Aurora is actually kind of okay with some of the swaps that happen there because you look at who's getting the farm. Vindicta is getting the farm. If you talk about your soul allocation, you'd rather your Vindicta get some of that. Also, I feel like some of the power in them running Mo with the Yamato here too is that it happened last game where, you know, Mo by doing combo is essentially feeding money to the Yamato when they were getting kills. And you saw some of that there too where combo comes in, ABL, able to get the finishing blow onto the Kelvin. How they're running this and how they're playing it is funneling farm onto the people that you want to have farm.
Indeed, I think that's, yeah, fantastic point. And I think that's one of the points of focus for sure at the moment in terms of the saving grace for Aegis Aurora. We have this push coming in on lane 1 as well. That tower is going to go down, so that's a little win for Aegis Aurora. And ABL's going to make his way back across to lane 2, where we've got a couple players pretty pushed here for Buff Enjoyers, so ABL should be getting on the flank, but also Dimov is lurking as well, so got to be careful not to bite off more than you can chew in this position. There comes the ult, but there's 3 players surrounding. Where's the assistance? It's surely coming through. I don't know if ABL's going to be able to survive, though. Trying to cut off line of sight. Oh my goodness, somehow able to take down Listic, who flies around the corner before the trade, but is Buff Enjoyers overcommitted here?
You know, if you're Aegis Aurora, it'd be good if you could get a gank on the Shriek sooner rather than later. And as I say that, Obi Kim gets caught, and I feel like they've been putting more pressure onto the Kelvin than anyone else for Buff Enjoyers.
Yeah, And these fights are happening. I mean, the buffs are coming up, and the first turn, we don't cover the M as much, but the first two bridge buffs are coming up here as well as all of these fights are taking place. So who's going to be in better position to enjoy those buffs? That was not on purpose, I promise. It looks like buff enjoyers looking to try to make it happen.
Parry comes in. That was a huge parry! Fremont comes in, gets the parry. The fall through from Sanya and Saints right after. Massive swing. Aegis Aurora now in the lead. And oh no, they're looking for Obakim again. I think this time he's going to get away, but not without the Guardian going down in turn.
Yo, okay. Point me to the Aegis Aurora t-shirt. I want the hats. I want the shoes, the limited drops. I'll take it all, ZP. I'm a fan.
Yeah, and look, that's a change that can happen now because, you know, between the last fight night and now, you do have to melee the buffs to get them. And if you go for the melee, well, sometimes you get the parry in turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
There. No, Obakim's down.
What a crazy turnaround. And 55k to 51k. This has just not been the story until the last 30 seconds. Aegis Aurora suddenly finding themselves ahead. Reminiscent in some respect to the best of one we saw, where Aegis Aurora felt like were just kind of having to deal with the oppressive presence of their opponents until suddenly a couple decisive plays and they get the edge. So we'll see if they're able to continue to build around this TP. Here's the drop off. There's no one to really defend it.
Yeah, no, they can't defend this. I mean, if Listic goes in, it's simply a suicide mission, but they're not really pushing much at the moment either. It's kind of a freebie in this instance. So Aegis Aurora going from down 6k to up about 7k, throwing some sand in their face, grab the Guardian, and away they go.
Good stuff here from Aegis Aurora. We'll get chased down by buff enjoyers though. Is a survival possible for Sonya Sniper? Sonya Sniper, I feel like, has had so many desperate escapes and most of the time actually pulling it off. And Sharik might be in trouble. 3 players quickly surrounding, but Sharik able to get out of there in time.
Yeah, it's all going down here on lane 2. And oh, Saints, clean from above. Vindicta ready to just finish off anything that gets slow. And Obakim in danger, getting chased down. Death on all sides. Might be able to get away, and in fact, Saint might have delved a little bit too deep. The rotation in from buff enjoyers now, forcing Vindicta the run for her life. Saint, I think, just barely gonna get away, but it comes at the cost of Sanya.
Yeah, that was crazy. Maybe I think Saint was feeling it a little bit too much. Back into the open, and then the chase begins. This gives buff enjoyers an opportunity to get back in a little bit. Oh, here comes the pursuits. Hot pursuit here. Demov trying to run down Wizasta. Should be okay though, Wizasta. As Alchemical Fire trying to get the TP. Oh, there's the stun as well. And it looks like it's going to have to be a cancel here for Demov falling out. But there's a greater fight to be had here in middle.
Yeah, Fremont getting caught. Seismic slam over and in into Vindicta. A little bit of a charge, but Vindicta's so fat right now she doesn't go down. That's the power of being farmed at this point. The Abrams being 2k behind. However, buff enjoyers not ones to let go of a good opportunity. Yamato ult still on cooldown. They feel like this is their opportunity to go for mid-boss. Telekinesis in. Razumi able to get Obakim. Aegis Aurora fiercely contesting. They get 2, and this might be Aegis Aurora's mid-boss here. They completely flip it as ABL not quite going to get away. As Sharik, hold on, last stand, grabs 2. Fight's not over yet.
Oh, there we go. Saint coming back in with the Vindicta. The assassinates doing the damage, and that's going to secure the mid-boss, as you said. Wow. Wow.
Wait. Surely Mikhail doesn't go for the steal here. Sure. Is Mikhail going for it? This would be crazy if it worked. Goes over. No.
Oh.
Dies. Simply dies. I respect the attempt, but that would have been one of the best plays ever if it had actually paid out.
I think, didn't we see that from Taz before? Like the 1v3
Yes.
steal with like a parry, it's a swap parry, all sorts of madness. So I was holding my breath, but once again, Aegis Aurora, they are what, 4 for 4 rejuice right now here today so far. So, you know, good for them, keeping the streak alive. And I mean, not a massive soul difference, but what this will do to the map and the map control, having the rejuve is really important because we talked about also in the background that Zergy is part of the late game plan here for buff enjoyers, but there is the necessity that buff enjoyers need to have enough map presence and pressure to keep Aegis Aurora off of him. So with the rejuve buff and how it impacts the creeps and the pushing, I feel like Zergy might be, you know, having to keep, he might have to slow down a little bit whilst this is all going on.
I think the problem that's kind of emerging for buff enjoyers right now, you talk about who has your farm, who doesn't. Shiv being behind the power curve, not great, because Shiv starts getting to a zone where people will just burst him down if he's not ahead. Shiv's dynamic on the game changes more than maybe any other hero based on behind versus ahead. Incredibly oppressive ahead, not great. So Emov needs something to go their way sooner rather than later here, but buffs are up. Aegis Aurora going to grab one. I think Listic grabbed the other. We'll see where this leads us. But you look at the overall condition between both teams. Neither team has a walker down yet. Both teams with a flex slot. It's still pretty even, Dan.
Yeah, it is. The major thing for me is just really how the map control is converted by Aegis Aurora that they have at the moment. Most lanes are fairly pushed. We've got Zergy who's trying to farm at the bottom right of the map. And the urn is up, so they can kind of run the urn behind the lane control that they have. It should be pretty smooth sailing. It's going to be a neutral one, and this should help them to get an advantage. The question is whether buff enjoyers are going to be challenging for this.
Well, they certainly could challenge for it, but the time limit here is quite short. Like, they need to commit essentially now, because this is getting hard sent directly into the turn-in, and it just turned in. Ivy's power to just ult over, paying off. Meanwhile, trades on the rooftop, going the way of Aegis Aurora. And now, looking for a little bit more. ABL hot pursuit, doesn't give up easily. Finds Sharik, does not care a lick about the last stand. And that small lead, Dan, now a much bigger lead, is buff enjoyers on the verge of going down one map if they can't reverse course.
Yeah, this should be another walker too. They still have the rejuve. They can keep pushing in with imperviousness, perhaps. There's 3 players that are down. Maybe the alchemical foul slow things down a little bit, but still, it feels like that walker is in so much trouble, and you've got Zergy coming in to help out there with the lightning balls. And there's a lot of, obviously, power from 7 to really slow down those pushes. So they'll keep the walker up for now, but look at the value swing that we have. It was, I think, 4k in advantage for Aegis Aurora, and now they are an additional 7k on top of that for 12k difference. So really, making inroads.
Also, you talk about the idea of certain people getting focused or bullied. Look, Obi Kim getting hit early in fights, it was something that started in the laning phase, has continued throughout the game. And yeah, a Kelvin doesn't necessarily need the most farm on your team, but when you have 16k Yamato, 18k Wraith, 17k Vindicta in the game, you're at 10, I guess down just barely 11k Kelvin. It's not great. I mean, you live in your bubble and then you instantly just fall down afterwards. Obi Kim playing these fights has to be done so methodically to just not die relatively instantly.
So, a couple minutes until the next buffs and urn come up. And we might have a fight here in the middle of the map. It looks like Listic is going to be able to get or assist that kill onto Freemog before they peel away. In the meantime, we do have some pushing from Sanya on lane 4. That's going to attract some attention. And that's actually good for Aegis Aurora, because they've got lots of players towards the left side of the map, lane 1 and 2. However, there's a pretty good defense to be mounted for that lane 2 walker. So, hello. Are we
this is ambush time.
Yeah, this is
I like
scary.
it. I mean, it's a little bit of risk where you might not get anything, but the reward is undeniable, especially with a Mo right there and wait. I think what they didn't realize is that people are up on the rooftops. Shiv on the top, 7 a little bit behind, and Aegis Aurora, they give up on the attempt, because you look at the rotation that's coming in too. Buff enjoyers, I think I got called out. You just see 2 people going from 2 to 1, and team's very good at being aware of rotations.
Yeah.
General rule.
I'll be honest, I thought they lagged out.
They're just sitting here, it's like, we're just being quiet,
Yeah, because they weren't moving their mouse either, so I'm like, hang on. But they were being quiet, sneaky, trying to listen. Okay, looks like we get a ping there onto a Walker too, which is very low. It is very low indeed. And Buff Enjoyers realize this. Okay, keep Buff Enjoyers on the defensive game here. They have to really respect these mid lanes getting pushed, because it's so tempting here for Aegis Aurora to go for one of those plays. So once again, it looks like we might get some poking and prodding towards these mid lanes. And we can see that the jungle is basically gone in the entire map. It's going to be bridge buffs in 30 seconds that might precipitate the next team fights.
Yeah, and I think on top of that too, Aegis Aurora would love to get another walker down right now. Just simply add another flex slot over and in. Buff and Joy is usually pretty good about not giving up stuff up for free, but also you look at lane 2, it's just a matter of time for that walker. Might even get soloed down by someone at some point, especially now we're 20 minutes in and they're made of paper. But take a look over here, lane 3 to 4, getting a little bit spicy between the two. Power slash, and it's Obakim. Obakim just keeps getting comboed. His face has just been met with Mo fists the entire time, and not even Frozen Shelter is enough to save him.
That's so sad too, because you invest the Frozen Shelter, but you don't even save yourself. So that's not going to come in line in a team fight in the near future. In the meantime, lane 3 is going to be pushed by Buff Enjoyers, and wow, okay, Wisasta is going to go down to Listic. Super committed onto this Walker. So this is a great push here from Buff Enjoyers. It doesn't seem like there's anything in position to stop this. So nice trade and value for them, despite losing OB Kim. They get a Walker. That's a great trade. And they're going to swing it into another Guardian. So this is going to quickly help them to recover the soul disadvantage. But there's that sound. Mid boss is up. And it's potentially another big team fight for this end.
It's efficiency. Also, you talk about trade outs. Given that Obakim is worth essentially nothing right now, you will trade Obakim's life for anything there. So the fact that you traded Obakim and got picks and Walker, it was a great macro trade for Buff Enjoyers, but now we see that the Urn is in play, and I think they just might go mid-boss. Yeah, they're going, okay, you can grab Urn, but you're going to have to abandon it for mid-boss is the calculus here, and I think they're going to drop the Urn. They do. Full mid-boss fight. ABL probably about the Shadow Transform to try and secure their June here. Buff Enjoyers, can they get in for the parry? Run out of time. No, they don't get in time. Obakim goes down instantly. Sanya finds him on the outskirts. Doesn't even use telekinesis for it. Instead, saves it. Drops on the Zergy, who's way more of a threat. Takes down the 23k player. And Aegis Aurora looking clean and healthy here, Dan. And they're going to get quite a bit push-wise in turn.
Yeah. I mean, you can really see the value of Mo there. That Sandblast just preventing Zergy from being able to do any damage. And given the fact that Zergy didn't have any frontline or anyone, like he was separated from his team. Oh, wow, it just worked out so perfectly. And I love this quick decision-making around the mid-boss for Aegis Aurora. This has been a decisive element of their macro that has, on multiple occasions now, ZP, given them the edge in these games that they've played. And they are pushing it all the way. All the walkers in mid going down, pushing down the towers. Sharik trying to get that. He's going to get that walker down for Buff Enjoyers, but he's going to be able to stop this drop off.
I kind of like that. Prevents the free Urn. Sharik says no, you can have as much as you want it back at base for now, but we're not going to give you this. It's actually smart to rotate that over. Sharik, though, has to be careful not to get rotated on. The rest of the fight taking place in lane 2. But, oh man, great position for Vindicta. Just full sight lines, no pressure, alchemical fire everywhere. So dangerous for Buff Enjoyers to even show themselves at that moment.
Yeah.
129k, the 145k. We're kind of at the point here. Buff Enjoyers gets maybe one more team fight to lose, and that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is a team fight right now because they're taking these fights in mid. They are catching players that have been routed from that previous fight. They're catching the stragglers, and that's going to be a small conversion. So not really an insane difference in the souls just yet, but yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of the problems repeat themselves. You're seeing just good positioning from Saints, where Buff Enjoyers have this difficult situation where you've got ABL in the mix. Like you got to try to focus on dealing with ABL, but obviously also the Moen Krill, the Geist, the Wraith. There's a lot of annoyances before you can even really think about the Wraith, who's positioned far away. So it's pretty hard, I think, to team fight against Aegis Aurora right now in some of these open spaces.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, too, you look at the front line, Obakim cannot survive long in these fights. They're actually just abusing the fact that he's behind as a #1 target. And you think about frontline stuff, I mean, you're a little bit behind on the Abrams, too, in turn, Frozen Shelter out as Obakim gonna catch the raw end of it. Combo out. Focus Fire is in. Razumi's super low, falls. Listic able to turn it. Buff Enjoyers actually getting very good poke damage in from the side. Stop it from going completely against them. Swap in from the KLS. Says get on down. Saints not going to get away. Fantastic positioning out of Buff Enjoyers there, Dan. Really making the most out of a tough situation.
And there could be more kills here yet because they could continue to chase down some of these players here. Aegis Aurora not out of the woods just yet. But maybe looks like they will be okay. Buff Enjoyers giving up on it. With that said, Freemock's still actually pretty deep there on lane 3, but will fall off. Huge conversion. That is a must-win fight. And it did feel like Aegis Aurora in a pretty good spot to have a good fight. It was the case that Sanya Sniper was actually late to the fight, had to TP in from lane 1, and so didn't hit a good timing with his teammates. I'm not sure if that made the difference or some of those key swaps. Sometimes hard to tell in these big team fights in Deadlock.
Well, buffs are up. First one gonna get claimed by Buff Enjoyers, true to name. Second one gonna go to ABL. I'm actually curious what ABL gets here. I think ABL got it. Because that could be quite impactful if ABL just got a casting or a survival, which would be the two things you'd want to get. We'll see when you get the Yamato point of view. That actually, short term, has quite a bit of impact, and especially now the buffs get better as the game goes on.
And this is crazy because Buff Enjoys, it felt like they're in insane danger territory of just kind of like getting snowballed out of the game, but they have recovered and they are running the Urn. This Urn fight could be everything, and right now, Aegis Aurora not necessarily prioritizing a huge amount of players towards the first lane where that Urn drop-off location is.
Yeah, I mean, okay, one is going to take the teleport. I think they're going to go here for 5, defend with 5, let Geist push, appears to be the calculus. Meanwhile, Buff Enjoyers might just be all in. Yeah. Geist still going back. Teleporter. Fight taking place. Quick snipe from ABL. Finishes off the KLS, dives on in. Power of the farm Yamato right now in play. Tanky, the focus of the entire fight, forcing Buff Enjoyers back. And anyone that gets low, gonna be facing the sniper rifle of Saint.
Free mark on the Geist is coming in from behind off of the teleporter as well, late into this fight. So that could be the big difference maker as well, something that Buff Enjoyers won't count on. Already down a player in Mikhail S as this fight continues around the frozen shelter, and they are looking to push in for the kill. ABL going deep there, chasing into Listic, who is able to get out of there, going ethereal to try to prevent a death, and that's going to work out for ABL. But 2 for 2 actually, after all said and done. But the Urn indeed going to Aegis Aurora, so nice prize there for them.
A little bit unfortunate for Buff Enjoyers to see the Urn go the other way, and yet the same note, this is the thing about Buff Enjoyers, even when they get behind, which isn't all that often, they make smart macro decisions, they usually get good trades, and they're never truly out of it. Down 12k right now, while not ideal, things are still very winnable. I think the part here that's getting a little bit untenable is a 33k Yamato that should terrify you. A 32k 7, nowhere near the level of fear factor that you're getting from the 33k Yamato. But given that Mikhail, if Mikhail can find a good swap and they can set the terms of the fight, there's still plenty of win conditions that they could go for, but it might just come down to mid-boss here, as Aegis Aurora has shown no chill Dan in going for mid-boss on cooldown.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it. Oh, this is very tense here in the middle of the map. For either team, this next team fight could be everything with that mid boss up. And Buff Enjoyers taking a more advanced position. There's a big swap coming through onto Saint, who's so critical, needs to stay alive deep into these fights, and is going to get taken down early on. So that's a huge amount of damage that's not there now for Aegis Aurora. Do they just give up this team fight? Can they give up the team fight? The mid boss is looking very, very good here for Buff Enjoyers. Aegis Aurora still sticking around here, though, ZP, in the mid area.
I think Aegis Aurora could definitely still contest. It's still worrisome if Buff Enjoyers goes in while Yamato still has ult. At a minimum, I think if you could take the fight enough, put enough pressure on ABL to get the Yamato ult down, then shift back in the mid-boss, you could. But you also have to do this pretty quickly, because Saint's coming back up in 25 seconds. You're on a timer, and they just send it.
There it is, Buff Enjoyers. Looking to get the mid-boss down. Are they going to find this to completion? They're going to have to abandon that because in comes the fight, the challenge here from Aegis Aurora, and there's the combo. Beautiful work coming in there from them. Sanya Sniper getting the kill, and it's Aegis Aurora down 2 players. Mikhail S is down, though, for Buff Enjoyers, so somewhat of an even fight. It comes down to the positioning.
Yamato ult was used, so they can't be used to secure mid-boss who goes there, but I love the decision-making of, well, you're going to go for a swap, but it's going to be a swap in all senses of the word. We're going to take down the Paradox. Aegis Aurora, down it goes. They will not have Yamato ult to secure it here this time. We have to play more by the book. You have the Storm in from the 7. The pressure is in. All people then in Saints! It's the Vindicta who lands it on to the Rejuvenator. The fall-through is there from Aegis Aurora. Buff Enjoyers getting cleaned up. And once more, Aegis Aurora, do not give up the Rejuvenator, Dan.
Yeah, they are so good at getting these. And I agree. I was so shocked that it was Saint of all players to dive in. I was like, who's going to go in there? And it's like the squishiest of all of them. Just dropping on it. And that's bold for the Vindicta, but it works out. And
Dan, Ghost Girl got hands. That's the only thing going here. I mean, look, she's also pretty well ahead. Decent health on top of it. First stage Patron going to go down. They have Rejuve. They could stay for both. Last game, they were playing secure. This game, they show no signs of retreat. Most of Buff Enjoyers will be back up because of the respawn buff after it goes down, but I think they might be staying here, Dan.
Yeah, they're in such a good spot here to just keep this rolling in. There's the Patron going down. Obviously, that's going to reduce the respawn time for Zergy. So it should be the case Buff Enjoyers can get everybody into this team fight here to try to defend, but the fight can be pretty well controlled here by Aegis Aurora sitting outside the base. That choke point works both ways, and they're going to be able to make a clean escape. And I mean, you know, I don't know if you played Dota, ZP, but in Dota, you know, when you kill Roshan, like the equivalent of the mid-boss, you get the Aegis. And I feel like the Aegis Aurora, I mean, they are every rejuve.
Yeah, and again, they've made some roster changes, and going into this, quite frankly, when a team goes to you, it's like, yeah, we had to do like 2 subs, you know, this has changed. You're sympathetic, but you're like, oh man, like, it's not gonna go well for them today. I could not have been more wrong in my gut feel. It has gone quite well for them today. The subs have changed the dynamic entirely, and Buff Enjoyers, again, not out of the game, but on their last life, both in economy and in reality, with the Patron being on second stage.
Yeah, and it is interesting because, okay, the next mid-boss, you know, just under 4 minutes away. That is not the longest amount of time in the world here that if Buff Enjoyers are able to kind of just somewhat prevent or at least keep up with the souls, not make it too much worse, the differential, and then there is that mid-boss to play around again. That is another opportunity where a team fight can be forced and potentially, you know, it gives you opportunities. But in just like a straight-up team fight, it doesn't feel like Buff Enjoyers are in a good spot to be able to win that. And obviously at this point right now, they've got to just wait for this rejuve to go away or to just be dictated to by Aegis Aurora that can decide to just ship it all in on one of these lanes if they want to. Or what they are deciding to do is just eat up all the jungle, get ahead, don't risk a team fight, and just like get as much souls as possible.
Well, Aegis Aurora, the game plan in front of them is clear. Buff Enjoyers, the challenge is palpable from here on out. I think if there is going to be a comeback here, as far as I know, you take a look here. Ivy doesn't have a rescue beam. There's no rescue beam for Aegis Aurora that's coming on in. You got to think that you're hoping for the Mikhail swap. As I say that, well, the swap comes in. Is the follow-through going to be there? You see 7. There's not going to be Stoneform in play. Charge though right after. Wizaster immediately down, but the rotation is in. Aegis Aurora says we're going to make it full fight. ABL right in there. Takes down Listic. Looking healthy and whole. Shadow transformation in play. Looking for more victims. Grabs a grapple through the bridge. Down goes Shiv. And Yamato continues her terror. It's not a clean pickoff that Buff Enjoyers was able to get.
Irazumi on the Mo and Krill is so low as well. Wow. You know, you asked the question at the beginning of the fight, or at least I was, okay, is Listic going down for that trade onto Wizaster right at the start of the fight? Is that going to be helpful or a hindrance? And it can sometimes be hard to predict, but Aegis Aurora obviously coming out a little bit ahead there. And ABL continuing to prove so difficult to deal with, just like Jake was saying, you know, that Yamato can be so oppressive.
Here we go. In we go. In 2 Buff Enjoyers in the main, 2 down, 5 dead total. Dan, that is it and over. Aegis Aurora rip map 1 away from the favorites in Buff Enjoyers. We have ourselves a series.
Oh, wow. This is awesome.
The lead was growing and growing and growing, and suddenly, I mean, that's a massive fight to go against you when you have the lead.
Right, it makes Vindicta less free in the air, especially when there's also a Paradox that can just swap you down to the ground at a moment's notice. But Jake, we're getting into it. Any final thoughts as we head into what could be our final map in EU?
I'm a Viscous enjoyer, but I'm an even bigger Buff enjoyers comp. I think their strat is really nice, and they've got like a better road to the late game here, and they can be a little bit more patient. They looked really solid even when they were slightly behind. They really stretched the game out, where I felt like Aegis Aurora, you know, should have had a bigger lead at times, but you know, Buff enjoyers fought it back really well. So I actually like Buff enjoyers this game. I think they're going to force a decisive game 3.
All right, thank you, Jake and Dan. We are into the laning phase. You take a look at the solo lanes. We got Yamato versus Shiv off in lane 4. We got Wraith versus 7 lane 1. But a lot of this action, a Talon Paradox lane, that's just real deadly in lane 2.
Oh yeah, it's certainly oppressive. It's going to be very difficult indeed, especially once they get to like 3k souls. But I mean, one of the things that... Oh, hello. That's a lot of damage immediately. Monkrill almost dying. But one of the things that's interesting is that obviously we'll have to see whether or not Aegis Aurora can convince us as to the way that Infernus will fit into the team fights and just those dynamics, because I'm also a bit unsure about how that's going to look in terms of, you know, how it works in their favor. And then additionally, as EP, you know, it's a good counter from Buff Enjoyers just to take the Ivy away. So, and then having more of a counter to Mo and Krill in Talon, it does feel like there's a lot of answers here that Buff enjoyers have forced. And so the adjustment from Aegis Aurora, you know, this is the game where they can prove to us that they're actually super legit.
Yeah, I mean, if Aegis Aurora is able to run the table here against not only DMS but Buff enjoyers, do it while also on a different comp, look, you tip your hat and say Happy New Year and look forward to what comes next. But Buff enjoyers, they've been at the top for a reason. I think they've drafted reasonably well here, even if they're off a little bit of their style. And oh man, this is rough for Mo because, you know, Mo the healing lane, you have to be able to get comfortably close to people. And the Paradox Talon setup isn't actually giving Mo a lot of room to go in and actually get scorns off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's normally with a Mo in the lane, you know, you can feel like very confident that you're gonna have a lot of flexibility in that lane, but it's definitely a matchup that's not as fun. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see any roaming.
Demon's about to die. Lane 4, super low. I think he just barely got out of it. You look at the health. He might have to go back, but you got rotation coming in. He called for help. He did the lifeline. Warren coming on over in lane 4. And it's
an answer to that.
Yeah,
Saints coming over too.
Yeah, all this rotation from ABL just nearly getting the early pickup on the Demob. Oh man, just shows how quick stuff can escalate, Dan.
Yeah, and you'll be careful too, because you know the Power Slash, Crimson Blade, the damage adds up like pretty quickly, even at the early levels. So not looking to go back, and in fact, we're going to get a kill onto Wizaster there. So Infernus, from an early showing point of view, not looking great so far, but it's only 3 minutes in, and Aegis Aurora, I mean, they should in theory have a lot of great presence again because of that Vindicta, and ABL and Irizumi on the Mo and Krill. They did a great job, especially in the mid game, to like roaming and playing off of one another. There's just a lot more answers now, so definitely I'm gonna have a lot of focus in the performance for Saints, who had, I think, relatively little pressure on him in a lot of the fights in the previous match.
Well, maybe more pressure here, certainly onto ABL. I think you look at the game plan here and the quick rotations over. As soon as it looked like ABL might get ahead, they decide ABL's not going to beat them. Still though, back and forth, Fremont and Sanya both able to get on the board. Listic returning in kind. Even so far between both sides, but it's about who's getting the farm. And right now, it's not ABL, but it is Mikhail and Listic.
Yeah, Sanya Sniper as well in the Wraith, doing a good job at the moment on lane 1. And we have to remember, Sanya's been targeted in a lot of the games we've watched so far in the early game. And so we're actually seeing a fairly free farm situation for Sanya in the early game for once. And, you know, doing a decent job with that. But yeah, it's the mid game when we get to 3k souls into the first like bridge buffs and the urn and all the roaming starts to happen, Buff enjoyers feel way more dangerous, especially with the presence that Listic can provide with both the owl and just the flight.
Yeah, and the danger here too is when you look at what Buff enjoyers can do, put the early game on their side. Just you look at rotations coming in from Mikhail here, right? Where Mikhail is in lane 2, I think there's probably going to be an attempt at Wraith or Vindicta pretty soon. He's not going to stay in lane 2. You roam heavily on Paradox, at least when swap comes back up. And also, you talk about pressure between the two. I think a swap from 3 to 4 could be in play soon, just because both Yamato and Shiv pretty low, but it's lane 3, Dan, where the action's starting to go down.
I set this heart.
And Al's out as well, so this is going down. Al getting sent straight to ABL. Hello. Oh, that was actually so close, EP.
I just thought that was poke damage to give Shiv an advantage. I didn't think it would come that close to actually just putting ABL on the ground. That is wild, but look at the advantage given there. He just took money out of ABL's pocket with that one owl, but still, things getting spicy. Sharik under pressure back here in lane 3, where once you get the slow and Vindictas in the area, nothing is safe.
Yeah, and the puddle punch there doing a lot of damage to Sharik. That's gonna. It's fun again when we get some new elements added into the game here. In Viscous has such awesome util that's somewhat unique. And here comes one of those bits of util, the goo ball coming out to try to prevent any escape here, getting at least one tag. And they're gonna have to back off here. The tower does a lot of damage, but I respect it. In the meantime, Sanya's actually getting pressured by 2 players on lane 1, although still seemingly having a decent time on that farm.
Yeah, and it's going back over in the lane 2 now. You see Listic rotating over and in. Mikhail goes for the swap. I think might have just landed the swap, and it causes Wizardster to immediately fall. That was a quick swap by Mikhail, followed through from the Talon arrow, and might not have been on screen, but I assure you, that's what happened.
Yeah, Uzumi
nice
gonna
parry,
go down.
double parry!
Hello.
Went to the scorn! Not enough to stay alive, but oh man, I love the effort.
Yeah, especially when you get like 3 heroes you can scorn off of, and the hero multiplier on the heal. That's actually sometimes that goes the other way, but not this time. Uzumi going down, and Aegis Aurora, with all that said, and with what feels like better pressure from buff enjoyers, actually slightly ahead, or well, now it's evened up, but they seem to be doing a decent job, and they're comfortable so far.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're dealing against early game pressure like a Paradox. I mean, I guess they're countering in turn with Vindicta. Both heroes very good mid game. Swapped in from Mikhail. Mikhail on the hunt once more. Ivy up and over. Listic again finding Wizester. And Mo not necessarily getting out. The stone form from on high, but just going to burrow his way out of danger. Meanwhile, lane 3, stuff is getting real spicy here. Viscous in for Sharik. Goo Ball chasing him down, looking for the right angle. Sharik goes to the top. He's gonna get away. In over the top, here comes Viscous looking for the cutoff. Where did Sharik go? And the answer is Sharik got away.
I need to be careful.
Yeah, that was really close. That would have been an excellent finish, but not to be, sadly for him. And defense here onto lane 2, and well, it's looking like it could be trouble here for Aegis Aurora. They are in pretty deep. Everybody from the buff enjoyer is starting to surround them. That's going to be Mo and Krill deleted. Tower going down as well. There goes Wizasta on the Infernus as well. So buff enjoyers coming out nice and ahead there on the defensive lane 2.
You know, I'll say this, and I mean, technically it's a true strip for ABL who is under pressure, but you want your Infernus to have a good ramp into the late game, and Wizasta hasn't had a ramp. He's had a speed bump that he hit at like 60 miles per hour. His car is just crushed at the moment. All these rotations, even though there's been trades, the trades have come at the expense of Wizasta, and you know, as you think about the early game into the late game, it's troubling for Aegis Aurora because you don't want a broken furnace. It usually means you're going to lose a game. But Viscous pressure here, Ivy Dan. Only get to the walker though, so will survive. Viscous though, likely the getaway, but has to use cube, more in question. Arrows locked and loaded here from Listic going, come on out of that cube, and they get him. Listic, pinpoint precision here so far.
Yeah, really bold to go so aggressive, but hey, lots of ways to get out of there, but it's going to be a fight here. Once again, deep fight from Aegis Aurora, taking it straight to buff enjoyers on lane 3, and it looks like they are going to get routed once again. ABL going down, and I don't know that they'll be able to catch the remaining players, but I mean, that was pretty nasty. Aegis Aurora have been going deep fairly often on these middle lanes.
Well, speaking of going deep, you got buff enjoyers now throwing a whole lot into lane 3, going at the very least, you want to get the Guardian here. Mikhail able to land it onto Saint. Way more pressure on the Vindicta this game from buff enjoyers than we had in the previous game between the Paradox and the Talon, working beautifully together in concert. Guardian's still hanging on, but you talk about push. You brought in a bunch in the lane 3, but it's actually lane 1 where Aegis Aurora gets a tower down. Big difference in towers between both teams too, where Aegis Aurora, they have the flex slot. Buff enjoyers yet to get one as buffs come out.
We do get the TP across from Sanya, who is the most farm player for Aegis Aurora now, trying to come in towards the bridge, but I think it's going to be a bit too late. That is going to be dominated by buff enjoyers, getting that buff. And I don't know, there's 4 players here. They're going to take down this tower as well. This could be a good opportunity for an engagement from Aegis Aurora, but I don't think they had the positioning and time to deal with that. So that's going to be an opportunity lost. And
Dan, I think they have to go for an engagement sooner rather than later, because a lot of these Guardians are low, and there's so much latent gold available for buff enjoyers. Like, yeah, they don't have flex slot right now, but they have 3 Guardians worth of souls just waiting for them at the moment. So even though it's a slight advantage of buff enjoyers, if they're just able to, even if no one dies and they just get Guardians, they're going to be significantly ahead. Aegis Aurora is actually, I think, under a bit of pressure to make something happen now before that latent gold is picked up. And oh boy, taste of their own medicine, Dan, as the urn getting express mailed from buff enjoyers.
yes, exactly. Exactly. I mean, there are players here to potentially stop this, so this actually could end up being a problem here for buff enjoyers. Depending on how much time they invest into this, you can see it's attracted the attention of Aegis Aurora. 3-4 players here on lane 4. They could just try to turn this into a walker push or pressure at least, which would give an opportunity to potentially steal this urn.
Dan, I think they should. I think right now, you look at how many are committed to the urn. If they're aware of that, and you know you have 3 towers worth of latent souls out there, I think you just hang on to the soul, make it a good time, and let everyone else get the Guardians that you're missing. You'll get the flex slot. You'll get ahead. It would make sense. We'll see how this works out, as Mikhail still keeping options open for a swap back here in lane 3. But, you know, you look, the urn's looking a little bit more clear now, Dan.
Yeah, Aegis Aurora couldn't justify just like sitting there, and they weren't prepared to push the lane either. So fanning out back into the middle lanes, looking for other opportunities for team fights, which I think is definitely smart. You could always catch other players looking to kind of help reinforce the own fight, but ooh, comes the stun, and it's like ABL. Oh, he's actually going to get the connection with the grapple straight into Sharik. Sharik, is he going to survive this? Here comes the ult as well from Yamato, and Sharik is surely not long for this world. He is gone. And that, I mean, they want to get the urn collected now. Buff enjoyers, they've got 4 players, but there's still 2 for Aegis Aurora. They could try to stop this.
Yamato grapple is an ability. That's all I gotta say. It's just like through 4 walls, it doesn't matter. But you know what also doesn't matter? Buff enjoyers, they might have lost Sharik to some grapple nonsense, but they also get the urn turned in. They're 4K ahead, still 3 Guardians worth of latent souls out there. Macro-wise, if they can find an opportunity to get a little bit of extra push in, they're actually in a very good spot right now.
Yeah, it's looking really good. Oh, there's the combo. And that's going to be a kill. Ballistic gets converted on. Beautiful there for Aegis Aurora. A lot of presence here on lane 2 at the moment. And, I mean, they could definitely create a lot of pressure here towards both lane 1 and 2. But they're going to give it up at this point. There's enough time that's passed, they can assume that there should be enough players to defend there. Don't want to waste the time on it.
I think the thing that's starting to get a little bit troubling now from buff enjoyers is that, okay, you had latent souls to go with. Surely you make a play that gets some push done. Aegis Aurora has been incredibly furious at defending their towers, and as soon as you start getting to like 15, 16 minutes and you don't have a flex slot, that is bad. That is immensely bad. It starts impacting your actual item choice that you would like to have at this point in the game. So the Guardian situation actually not very good now for buff enjoyers, even as they're nursing the smallest gains.
Well, there's one of those towers you were talking about. And 3 players for Aegis Aurora on lane 1, looking to pressure that Walker. And so pressure all over the map at this point. It'll be a smaller fight. Sharik is going to get comboed. He is absolutely toasted. Shot in the side of the head as well by Saint to get those bonus souls. And they're out. They're out just as 3 players arrive to defend. It's too late.
You know, if buff enjoyers get out of this and we have a map 3, I'll be honest, on the scouting report, the one constant in both games, yeah, there's the Yamato, but they've gotten such good use out of the Mo. There's so many times that you'll see a team play Mo, and for whatever reason, you don't get a ton of combo value. Combo has done so well for them over not only the BO1, but also the first map of the series that, you know, maybe in the future, maybe you do take the Mo away from them.
Yeah. I feel like in NA, I've only seen Hydration really make the Mo look convincing.
No.
Game to game, so I totally agree, and really cool to see that. And the urn's about to come up, so are the bridge buffs here, so we might see a fight here, but actually it looks like, yeah, this looks pretty in control by buff enjoyers on the left side of the map. Right side of the map for Aegis Aurora, and they have the urn on their side too.
Also, it won't be an express delivered urn, at least not yet. Obviously, Ivy ult going to be on cooldown for a little bit. So yeah, I mean, how this urn plays out is really going to decide which team gets advantage. Now, no, Buff and Joyers, they still need a Guardian for flex slot. It's heading close to 16 minutes. It might be our next fight, in all likelihood. See Disaster under a little bit of pressure, but they don't really care about the Infernus here, Dan. They just want this Guardian. They would like their flex, and now they got it.
And they get it, yeah. And there's a big wall of Buff and Joyous players in between the urn and the urn drop-off point for Aegis Aurora, but they might be able to get there now, as it does seem to clear out a little bit. So, and these positions have been scoped out by teammates for Aegis Aurora, so looks like Saint should be able to get a turn in here. Demov is hanging out, but doesn't really have any reinforcements to help him stop the urn.
Yeah, and I mean, rotationally, Buff and Joyers invest on the right side of the map. They give up the urn, which, you know, may be a little bit questionable. Now you have the big rotation here. 3 versus 3 in the left. Mikhail coming in, going to be a little bit late to the fight. Right now, Viscus on the Listic, trying to fish off. Listic on a prayer! Barely lives as Mikhail just comes in, makes it at the time. The Riders of Rohan Carbine lets Listic keep his life.
I need to find a place to rest.
Wow, what a huge save as well. That's crazy. It looks like a for sure kill there with the puddle punch all set up and everything. But, well, so as we reset the situation across the map, it's 90k to 90k essentially. So even on the souls, and if we look at the distribution, I mean, there's nothing that's too standout, I suppose, except Sanya Sniper still doing a great job to stay ahead of the curve. Sergey, perhaps about where you would expect as well.
Yeah, I mean, you expect 7 to be where they're at relative to the rest of the team, and Paradox at times can get ahead just by virtue of being Paradox and being involved in a lot of kills. It's not the greatest for Buff Enjoyers that Demov and Shriek aren't ahead of the curve of the game, if anything, a little bit behind it, but it's not a critical era. I mean, it would be better. You'd much rather have, like, Shriek at 19k right now, right? That would be a big difference in how fights go down, but it's about as even gets on the whole. ABL, though, might be more of a threat as time goes on. I mean, same with Sanya's Sniper, but Yamato's the one you have to keep the pulse on, just to be like, okay, you can't get too far ahead.
And a decent recovery, I would say, for Wizasa as well, because I felt like Wizasa had a bit of a slow start. I know you were exclaiming on that previously, too, so we'll have to see what, again, the Infernus does in some of these later game team fights. But there it is, the combo initiated, and there's just nothing. Oh, hello. We managed to actually escape it, but there's the finishing blow. Actually works out because it's the Vindicta to finish it off. And it looks like we'll have to fall off of this one. Mikhail S going back to the Walker for safety. And Aegis Aurora, they can't push any further. But again, a lot of extra souls there for your carry.
Real unfortunate for Mikhail that the swap was not up yet. He used swap earlier in the fight. If the swap was up there, Vindicta's probably dead in that situation, but instead it's a clear pickoff on Obakim where, yeah, Obakim, I feel bad. It doesn't matter what hero Obakim is on, just the Mo fists are coming. By far the #1 target of choice for Irizumi in this fight, or in this match thus far.
Painful indeed. Yeah, it's not been fun game for Obakim. And a lot of players now towards the middle of the map as well. This lane 3 might potentially get an initiation there. Okay, that's looking for a potential target for a swap, but looks like Aegis Aurora will fall back a little bit on lane 3. And I mean, we've got a free market on the Viscus, like heavily pushed on that lane 1. And this is going to be a potential a kill unless he's able to escape here. Google comes out, obviously super mobile.
Oh. Well, while we were watching the Viscous great escape of Gooball, Wizaster getting caught. Again, not really enough of a pickoff to justify going mid-boss, but the real key here, what Walker off on the right, Aegis Aurora going to get it, their first Walker of the game, and how much of a fall-through is going to be here? You see Mikhail rotating over. This is where you could go for an opportunistic swap, but you look at how it's developed, it's not going to happen here just yet. But on the other side of the map, Fremont, no Gooball that time. Take it on down. Zergy laying in the damage, now looking for the Amato, but really just wanting this final Guardian, a little bit extra souls, Buff Enjoyer's way, but look out, here comes Yamato, grapple connecting, looking for Listic, forces out the Veil. Stormcloud weighing in the wings here from Zergy, might not come out here yet. Shriek running away. I think they're just more than happy to disengage here, Dan. Did not want the longer fight.
Yeah, I mean, really a great result, I think, for Aegis Aurora to actually get a kill there and actually fall away. They were somewhat outnumbered, so Aegis Aurora staying in the lead by 6k souls. Very tight game. Again, you know, we had that point made by Jake about just having all like every urn, you know, by the Ivy, and with that dynamic now not in play, we can see that it's a much tighter scenario. Obviously, it's not just about that, but here's another combo, and oh my god, look who's around the corner. It's Vindicta, and I'm sure the Assassinate's going to be there to finish that one off, presumably.
One would think, but Demov was able to get away. Here's Zumi. Ended up getting low in turn. It does not result in a kill. Combo is on cooldown. Urn still in motion. Is what we're seeing here. Aegis Aurora would love to add the Urn, really solidify their lead. And you take a look at it. Okay, is this going to be a teleport for Talon or a push? No one's going to get there. It's just going to be a clean Urn turn.
And they're so good at the urns, even without the Ivy, still managing to kind of create the space in mid to ensure that that collection could happen. And with mid boss being up, and without having, I feel like this is the longest the first mid boss has been up in some of these games that we've seen so far, unless I'm mistaken. I'm sure Aegis Aurora are going to be itching for that. But again, without the Ivy, it's definitely a bit more risky.
Yeah, and I think the part of why it's been so on mid-boss is that the crucial fights that we've been having this game, it's all been side lanes. And it's just so much harder to actually convert 1 or 2 picks into mid-boss unless it goes down in middle. But speaking of going down in middle, it's going down right now. Telekinesis out, Sandra under the gun, beating the run after the swap from Mikhail. Combo, though, in play. Who you got? They got Listic again. Demov, though, finding a little bit of room to work with. Gets Irizumi. Goo Ball. A little bit of chaos here from Fremok in the moat. Multi-level gameplay at the moment. Sharik last stand in progress. Moving forward. Aegis Aurora are way lower on multiple people aside from the Ivies, so they're the ones that have to retreat a bit here, Dan.
Yeah, honestly, what a juke from Sanya to be able to survive that after having burned the TP and then getting swapped. Still manages to get out. That's pretty insane. So 10k soul difference. Again, not a huge difference at this point in time. And both teams sort of jockeying for position around mid. Most of the jungle is down on the map at the moment too. So here's, okay, is this a bait? They're going to try to bait this maybe? Like,
they might, but
down Q. Just going to go for it.
Commit. Usually buff enjoyers will commit, and they do. I mean, it makes sense. There's no Yamato ult, but there is Inferno Assault. You have to think Wizaster is going to be going in there in a hurry. Compulsive Concussion is coming on in. Ivy Stoneform, who's going to get it? It's still on the ground. It's Aegis Aurora who rip it away. But very even fight so far. Buff Enjoyers not letting them get away bloodless. 3 down, 3 for 3 here so far. Sharik down at the end. Listic gonna leave away. Aegis Aurora again coming out ahead here, Dan, but you know, not by as much as you might expect, but the rejuve is theirs.
Their play around the, I want to call it, we should just rename it, so instead of rejuve, we should call it the Aegis now. I don't know. but their play around rejuve is pretty incredible. The fact that we saw so much util flying in there, including the owl, and they still managed to get it, unreal. Okay, so just like trying to convert here with these walkers. Aegis Aurora in such a commanding position at this point. Huge opportunity for Souls to go in their advantage. Able to dodge the power slash, but that's still not going to be enough there for Demov to escape. And so bigger convergence coming from Aegis Aurora, looking to get that lane 3 walker now. There's the lane 1 walker up for grabs as well here, ZP.
But the swap comes in. ABL a little bit overextended. Mikhail does not miss opportunities like that. Listic bringing the fire from above. If any team can come back from a tough situation like this, it is Buff Enjoyers. And also, I mean, part of it too, the fact that they have the Paradox, the character that can still get pickoffs and slowly chip away at a lead when you're behind.
So what I'm trying to understand right now is the options for Buff Enjoyers. You know, obviously the map control, because of the rejuve again, it's not there, so that makes the whole map pretty risky. And the fact that Aegis Aurora obviously have the rejuve buff still, it's riskier still, because they can just dive pretty hard onto potential ganks. So you have to be so cautious in this position if you're Buff Enjoyers. Navigating this spot is not something I envy.
Well, also, you talk about what are trends in the game and what do you have to worry about. While Wraith is not as scary as she was in her telekinesis stun days, that's a fat Wraith. That is a Wraith that is just about as rich as you can get. I mean, they are out here, you know, dropping $100 bills at the bar. 33K. You know, if you're Mikhail S, your #1 pickoff here that you want to start the fight out with, you want Sanya dead. That is your absolute highest value pick. You know, after that would be Yamato, but picking up Yamato a little bit problematic in the best of times.
True.
Also, the split push going on right now. You have 4 in middle, but you got 2 going, we'll help ourselves to some base guardians. Why not?
Yeah. And what's interesting is our Buff Enjoy is going to be pulling players back to deal with this. They only have, I mean, they only need Zergy really. Zergy's on the 7, really effective at defending these pushes with that util. And actually the urn is going to be picked up here by Buff Enjoyers, and it is of course a location that's friendlier to them, but it is the covered location.
Consequences once more.
Meanwhile, just we're gonna keep an eye on the location. And Furnace in the skylight. What could be the decisive fight of all of Europe right now. Underway, combo immediately starting off the fight. Irezumi, they'll punish in turn. Zergy with the damage hit Mikhail. It's Listic and Zergy dropping damage from afar, but Saint returning fire on the assassinate. Both teams wounded. You take a look at Freemock. Very, very low right now. Buff Enjoy is a little bit healthier. Ivy, though, under pressure. Stone Form on the ABL takes him out. And Buff Enjoy is hanging on here, Dan. The urn might be theirs, and the game right back in it.
Yeah, this is obviously a must-win scenario here for Buff Enjoyers. They managed to do it really well done. I'm still trying to work out how Wisasa got deleted. He was standing in the lightning ball. I think that was one of the things that was happening maybe.
It's a closed-in area. Lightning ball gets crazy value. A carbine, I think, came in at the same time, and of course, you know, anytime you're in closed-in areas, you're also more likely to get more done from talent arrows. So across the board, it's a lot of AoE damage in a very condensed area. And just like that, Buff Enjoyers, they're not done yet.
Yeah, really the perfect turn-in location to give Buff Enjoyers an opportunity to have a good fight, which they absolutely did, as you described. And now, well, we've got mid-boss coming up in 2 minutes. So that's going to be a really interesting point of contention here. Aegis Aurora, I mean, wow, weren't they like 30, 40k ahead? Now it's just 10. So it's such a huge gap now diminished.
It was at least a gap of like 25k, maybe 30 is where it was at. But that is in the past and the future is now. And the gap basically inconsequential at this point. Obviously, Sanya's overall net worth still scary, but Sharik and Dimov much more back into the game after that last fight. Same with Listic.
Mid-boss 130. Potential team fight brewing here in mid between Buff Enjoyers and Aegis Aurora. Aegis Aurora looking to move into the secret shop. Don't find anybody there. And they've obviously doing it. I like how they're doing the positioning here, but hold that thought because here now goes the fight.
Overkim's down. They didn't have to use a combo. It's a clean pickup for Aegis Aurora. They're feeling it. You see the goo ball in the middle. A lot of viscous value coming on in. The disruption from the goo ball. Saints following through on some of that goo damage. Freemock, though, finally goes down. 2 down for Buff Enjoyers, 1 for Aegis Aurora. Saints laying in damage from afar. The rest of Buff Enjoyers able to get out of the crossfire. But now, 1 minute till mid-boss. I think the timing here a little bit fortuitous for Buff Enjoyers, Dan, because if it was 1 minute earlier, this game might be over.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Buff Enjoyers down 1 player, mid-boss about to spawn up. We'll see how this one ends.
Yeah, they must have pretty good team chemistry, Aegis Aurora, because as you say, like, obviously getting good roles and just having players that can kind of synchronize in that sense is good, but obviously the magic happens when there's like good team chemistry and it just kind of gels like pretty much straight away, and you make a move and you don't have to hesitate because your teammate's going to do sort of the correct thing. He's going to see the game in the same way as you as well. So yeah, they're doing so well in the macro from a decisiveness point of view that it makes me feel like that's kind of what they have going on, because normally it takes time to really build that. So yeah, really impressed so far from Aegis Aurora. Again, gathering around middle. Again, we know the mid boss is up.
I think here's the key. Who's going to be the first mover that you're going to see here? Aegis Aurora, they're going to push it. They're going to run Shadow Transformation. Buff Enjoyers, they need to make sure that someone doesn't get comboed and blown up immediately. I think key here is don't let Mo start things out, and they go for the fake. They just get it low. And now I'm really curious who Irezumi is looking at. And Mikhail, because I feel like it's between Mikhail and Irezumi that really starts out how this fight begins here, Dan. both have their ideal conditions. And one carbine or one just quick blink-in combo could decide it all. And mid-boss now about to go down.
And there it is. There's a Wraith ult as well. Oh, the Yamato ult coming in as well. So, opening kill onto Zergy. That's a huge one to find. Oh, but is there a steal attempt coming through? No, of course. Sanya gets it there again. The redo for Aegis Aurora. Could you ever imagine anything else as the team fight is swinging in their favor, snowballing on to Buff Enjoyers, who are 3 players light at this point, a 6v3, and Aegis Aurora, decisive advantage here. This could be the end of the game, ZP. This could be a 2-0 upset.
Unbelievable from Aegis Aurora, where they keep flexing, pushing onto mid-boss, and they keep getting Rejuvenator. Fight after fight, whether it be DMS or Buff Enjoyers, and now they have put themselves in the driving seat to finish it off and then some. This urn that they're about to turn in, absolutely free with 3 members of Buff Enjoyers down. It is going to be about a 30k deficit between both teams. Buff Enjoyers' status as the Kings of Europe, after winning all 3 $10,000 tournaments in December, after winning the last Deadlock fight night, their reign could be on the verge of ending here and now, Dan, unless they are able to dig deep and find a way through. And right now, you got to be looking at Mikhail wondering, can you pull a rabbit out of the hat? Can you find the swaps to get the ball rolling? Because they need a miracle at this point.
I feel like we need to get Jason Captain on like a new stat for his spreadsheet, which is like the percentage of collected rejues under like contested mid bosses, because the consistency here from Aegis Aurora is scary to behold. And I mean, right now, obviously, they are just ensuring that they leave no value on the map up for grabs, taking all of it. And that, I mean, we saw in the previous maps as well. They really try to make sure that they just lock it down and they don't take any risks once they get ahead. Because how does the rule go? You know, when you're ahead, get more ahead.
Speaking of getting ahead, I think the Mo usage from Aegis Aurora has been so on point. You think about the last fight where they catch Zergy, the person you expect to be throwing down the most spam damage possible in a mid fight, just gets comboed immediately. And it's the engage factor between the two where, you know, Mikhail's had a pretty good game all in all, but Irizumi has just been catching people on this Mo and feeding the carries on his team, putting Buff Enjoyers in a tough spot. And we'll see if Irizumi has one more in him, because I tell you, Dan, one more good team fight, and I think Aegis Aurora will be our new champions.
It's interesting too, because we talked about, you know, the adjustments in the draft, and one of the head scratches for us was the Infernus pick, and I don't really feel like I mean, I'd be curious to hear what Jake will think afterwards, but I don't really know that I've seen Infernus be as present in some of these fights, just from the POVs we've been watching. So I'm going to be interested to see how it looks in some of the replays, because obviously, you know, Wizas has been able to do a great job this whole game, even despite having a really slow start.
Yeah, and Buff Enjoyers, at this point, you know, they haven't felt their own mortality in a while. You think about their performance throughout the month of December. They were winning those finals decisively. It wasn't going to decisive maps or anything like that. Their tournament life now on the line as they find themselves quarantined back in their base wondering, is it 2020? We can't leave our house. It's Aegis Aurora in firm control, and it's 2.5 minutes to mid-boss, where the final fight may be underway.
Yes, and Buff Enjoyers, you know, they're not out of this just yet. It's obviously pretty late game, 35k soul difference. It's not, we've seen recoveries from this. It just takes one team fight to just sequentially happen in the right way for Buff Enjoyers to recover this onto then maybe a mid-boss potentially. That would be the way to really flip this. And you gotta be careful, you know, Freemog, I love how Freemog has been playing on the Viscous. No fear, playing really aggressively the entire game, going really deep and trying to make stuff happen, relying on all of the escapability, which is, I mean, that's one thing Viscous is so good at, so it makes sense.
Well, it is tense. You could cut the tension with a knife. Even though Buff Enjoyers are behind, both teams know that one mistake could change the course. I think Aegis Aurora right now, Dan, their game plan is be safe, be secure, get next bin boss, win the game. Don't get swapped. I think that truly the #1 threat here is Mikhail threading the needle, getting the swap, and having the follow through be there. There's one thing that Aegis Aurora cannot have happen. But they're running down the clock. It's only 1:20 until the next mid-boss, which they will force as soon as it comes up. So on the same note, Buff Enjoyers, they're running out of time to find that magic pickoff.
Yeah, they're kind of moving out as a group there so that if there is a gank attempt, they can just like jump on the ganker. And I mean, there's no real way for Fremont to engage. He realizes and respects this movement. Urn is up at the moment, so the Urn obviously could get run here, and there'd be time for mid boss after the Urn. However, team fight, yeah.
They're looking for it. Yamato into the back line, so devastating diving, forces out the early shift, brings up the Shadow transformation. Saint kills Overkim early in the fight. Grapple. Listic's not getting any damage done because he's getting done. Listic, you see the Yamato in the back, 2 clean pickoffs. And just like that, Dan, it could be the age of a new champion. Aegis Aurora. Their game plan is clear. They're going to get some shrines, maybe back off, get the mid boss, and secure it that way. I think they're going to play it as safe as possible. Buff Enjoyers looking for any way to hang on here. Last stand by Shriek at death's door. A pixel of HP here, Dan. Somehow stays alive.
Yeah, this big swap actually is going to secure the kill into Fremont. Right now, the objective for Aegis Aurora, they really want to get the Patron here and then fall into mid-boss, like you say. So they've got to be cautious that they don't give up too much. And it's better to fall off, not get the Patron, guarantee the mid-boss, than overcommit here into the Patron.
He's so low, Dan. You look at D-Mob, barely staying alive. Shriek gets picked. If D-Mob goes down, they could actually just push base here. D-Mob was able to get away. 3 up. Pressure onto the Patron. Stage 1 Patron down. And they're going to go mid.
Yep. Mid boss on the way. And I mean, these players for Buff Enjoyers are coming off the spawn here, off the rip. There's 5 alive. They might just need to try to go mid now, all of them. There's obviously 2 players are still respawning for Aegis Aurora. So this is an opportunity potentially for them to do something, whether that is to like just go mid boss if Aegis Aurora are not doing so. They have, but whatever they do, DP, I feel like they have to do something right now in this timing window, and indeed, they're going for the mid boss.
Yeah, that last pickoff changed the equation. They get the swap into the knockdown, and it's a quick pickoff onto the Vindicta. Buff Enjoyers are not dead yet here, Dan. Zergy, though, down the ABL. They're down quite a bit of damage. Aegis Aurora is going to contest the mid boss. Gangalore, they back off on the mid boss. Meanwhile, Shriek up and over here because they're trying the back door. You have Saint Tanya here in the back going, we don't need the mid boss. We're just going to burn it on down. It's over. New champions of Europe, Dan. What a shot call in the end. You don't need the mid boss if you kill the Patron.